My name is BHATIA, and this is our class of BHIC 131. We have studied Unit 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 7, 8. And in Unit 8, we have studied about the Vedas. Four types of Vedas were there prevalent in India. Rig Veda, Samveda, Atharva Veda, Yajur Veda. Vedas. As you all know, the mantras, the chanting, all the sacrifices were written in Vedas. Vedas were of four types: early Vedic and later Vedic, Vedic period and later Vedic period. In Vedic period, we have studied in our last class about Rig Vedic period, first Veda, Rig Vedic period, the earliest Veda, the ancient Veda we have studied about. Now, in this Unit 9, we will study about later Vedic Veda. There are some changes between these two Veda period. Some changes we will start to study about the changes of later Vedic period or later Vedic phase, as you have seen on picture. Next, later Vedic period. The introduction of later Vedic period. As you can see on screen, that there were so many states, there were so many Mahajanpadas. Janpadas were there: Panchala, Koshala, Kuru, Veda, Videha, and Magadha, and Satavanta. There were so many Kalinga, Andhra. So many states were prevalent over there. You can see on map. And we are going to start the changes in later Vedic period. Some changes were prevalent over there, like the period which you are going to study now extends roughly from 1000 BCE to 600 BCE. In Vedic period, we have studied about 1500 to 1000 BCE. And in later Vedic period, we will start from 1000 BCE to C600 BCE. By this period, some of the Vedic tribes had moved from the Sapta Sindhu region to the Upper Ganga Valley and other adjacent regions. During the period of this shift, a number of changes in their social, political, economic, religious structure took place. Yes, we will study about the all changes in social, politically, economically, religiously. In this unit, we will discuss the major aspects of these changes. What were the aspects of these changes? First of all, before starting later Vedic period, we will read about the sources, literary sources, archaeological sources. In literary sources, later editions, especially 10 mandals of Rig Veda and Sama, Yajur, Atharva Veda are the other Vedic texts which are ascribed to later Vedic phase. Sama Veda is a book of prayers, chants, which are from the Rig Veda, modified and set to tune for the explicit purpose of singing them during the ritual. Yajur Veda elaborates the rituals which accompany the recitation of hymns. The rituals and hymns in this Samhita document the social and political milieu of this period. Atharva Veda contains the folk tradition of this period and represents the popular religion. It is a good source for understanding the socio-religious conditions of this period. Samhitas. These Samhitas are followed by a series of texts called the Brahmans, which are commentaries of the Vedas. Commentaries of all the Vedas. Commentaries. They explain social and religious aspects of the rituals, throw light on Vedic society. Although It would be wrong to take any period of early Indian history as the epic period as such. Two Sanskrit epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana, are rich in information and different aspects of early Indian society. You have studied about these two epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are rich in information, different aspects of early Indian society. Historians believe that the core of what is reflected in these epics can be traced to later Vedic phase. Yes. The geographical focus of this phase was on territories of the upper and middle Ganga basin, although other regions are also mentioned. In this epic, also the major events took place in this region. We must, however, remember that there is nothing to prove that the stories narrated in the epics were actual historical events. Secondly, both the epics took many centuries to reach their present shape. Just like Mahabharata, V.S. Subthankar has compiled that Mahabharata epic, and he has taken 47 years to compile all the narrations, all the didactic sections in one book. And there are so many volumes, means 9 or 10 volumes of Mahabharata were prevalent. Both the epics took many centuries to reach their present shape. So, there are many types of societies which we may find simultaneously reflected in the epics. What are the archaeological sources to know about later Vedic period? Literary sources are Vedas itself, but archaeological sources, literary sources repeatedly refer to the areas of present western UP, Haryana, Rajasthan. The period assigned to later Vedic phase is circa 1000 BCE to 600 BCE. This is near about. Circa means near about. Many communities and cultural groups are mentioned in the text. Particular pottery forms cannot be identified with some tribe. However, in the same geographical region, some agricultural communities flourished in roughly the same time bracket. Some communities used a particular kind of pottery called PGW, as we have also studied earlier, painted graveware. Thus, these archaeological finds would reflect the material conditions of later Vedic society, means PGW. You can see the pots which were using at that time. At what time? At the time of later Vedic phase. First pot, second pottery, third also pot, fourth some utensil like fourth, fifth, sixth. You can see the Ludo game like they were playing at the time of Mahabharata. This is also known as Chaucer, just like Ludo. More than 700 PGW sites have been found along the upper Ganga basin. Their distribution extends from dry beds to off river Ghaggar in Bahawalpur and northern Rajasthan to the watershed of the Indus and Ganges and Ganga Yamuna Doab. The eastern limits of this sphere are restricted to the northern plains of Ganges, as the site of Savasti indicates. Some important PGW sites are Ataranji Khera, Ahichatra, Noh, Hastinapur, Kurukshetra, Bhagwanpura, Jakhera. These are the sites, important sites of PGW, means painted graveware pots. The Manas culture of southern Rajasthan, which has been dated at c. 2000 to 1400 BCE, may have possibly extended to Ganges Valley around 800 BCE. These black red ware users can also be related to also be related to the present period. Archaeology does not document the eastward shift of Vedic Aryans, a shift which is suggested in the literary text. We have seen that Aryans had came on to invade Indus Valley civilization. Aryans invade Indus Valley civilization. That was also a reason of decline of Indus Valley civilization. Archaeology does not document any single culture shifting eastwards. There remains a large gap between nature of literary and archaeological sources. Iron objects that they have found were at the sites of PGW, painted graveyard sites. The carbon dates from Ataranji Khera, Jodhpura, Noor suggest that in context of Gangetic plains, this 245 metal was introduced around 1000 to 800 BCE. The exploitation of iron in UP, Himachal, Punjab, and later in South Bihar was an indigenous phenomenon. The Rigveda mentions Ayas, which may refer to iron. Yes, through the archaeological evidence relates iron to the later Vedic period. The literary sources provide ample corroboration of this. The Yajurveda qualifies Ayas as Shyam Ayas, and Brahmins speak of Krishna Ayas, Shyama word, Krishna. Both words refer to a black metal which means iron. Recent excavations suggest that the megalithic people of South India too were familiar with iron technology. We can no longer talk in terms of introduction of iron technology into the Indian subcontinent by the migrant Aryans. Iron technology and its impact. An important question to be asked here is, does the knowledge of iron lead to any advancement in the metal technology of this period? Similarly, one would also like to know the extent to which the introduction of a new technology changes the material value of society. The evidence of the later Vedic period suggests a transition from pastoral society to a sedentary agrarian society. Means they have converted their occupation from pastoral to agrarian, means agriculture. Now they are known as settled people. It was also believed that iron-tipped ploughshare and hoes increased the efficiency of agricultural implements, which further agricultural activities. Scholars believe that the knowledge of iron technology was an important factor for the development of agrarian economy. As you all know, with the introduction of iron, they use hoe, they use plug in their plugging to fertile their soil, to plug the land. They use iron-tipped plugshare. However, we now know that the later Vedic period was neither purely agrarian nor was it well advanced in iron technology. The rich iron ore mines of Bihar were still not exploited, and the technology of smelting iron was primitive. You can see the weapons made by iron they were using at that time. Yes, these weapons were using for uh, cut the grass, for cutting the field and all. And you can see the knife. You can see the plug share also. The objects which are found in excavations are number one, iron tipped arrowheads, next is spearheads, etc. Weapons of which the largest number comes from Ahishatra excavations. Sickles, hoe, axes rarely found in excavations. One plugshare has been reported from Jakhera, which probably belongs to the end of this period, Jakhera. Yes, From excavations, it appears that the use of iron was restricted to making weapons. Iron did not influence agriculture technology until second half of first millennium BC, when the marshlands and monsoons forests in the Middle Gangetic Valley were gradually cleared. In the later Vedic period, the clearing of forest by burning was carried out the upper Dwar. We have the description of burning the Khandavana in Mahabharata to establish the city of Indraprastha. Iron-tipped weapons and horse chariots helped military activities, which were rampant in this period and have been extensively documented in the Mahabharata. However, in subsistence-related activities, iron technology had practically no role. Now you can see how they were using iron weapons in fertiling the soil and in all activities they were doing at that time. At what time? In later Vedic period. The nature of the economy, the coins, the moment, the importance of pastoralism declines. How the pastoralism declined and the agriculture communities settled. Changes in the functions of rituals, how they change their rituals. Emerging importance of land in agriculture, political and society, chief and wild warriors. Yes, the nature of economy, how they increase their economy with the help of iron, with the help of agriculture, with the help of pastoralists. Now we can see both archaeological and literary sources document the introduction of rice as a staple diet of people. The PGW and the Banas culture yield charred grains of rice from excavated sites. Yes, they have got the charred grains in excavation. The Vedic texts mention Vrihi, Tandula, Shali, all denoted rice. Yes, they all the second names of third name of rice. It appears that cropping was practiced now and the field grew both barley and rice. The elaborate sacrifices of this period, like Rajasuya, include offering of grain along with milk, ghee, and animals. The sacrifices prescribed in the Atharvaveda for acquiring material benefits recommended the gift of cows, calves, oxen, gold, cooked rice, thatched houses, well cultivated fields to the Brahmins. The items of those offerings are a clear indication of growing importance of sedentary settlements in agriculture. Later Vedic texts also refer to 8, 12, and even 24 oxen yoked to the plug. Though the number of oxen mentioned is possibly symbolic, reference suggests that the plug cultivation was familiar in this period. Now you can see the coins which they were using at that time. Sometimes silver coins, I think it is shown in this picture. The importance of pastoralism declines. Yes. What was the reason behind the decline of pastoralism at that time? Yes. Earlier they were hunter gatherers. Earlier. Hunter gatherers. They find their food from the trees, from the forest, and they herd their cattle here and there in one forest, in other forest. That's why they were known as pastoralist communities. Now they are changing their point of view, pastoralism to agriculture or settled communities. Pastoralism was no longer a main subsistence activity of the people, and as it was early Vedic period. Mixed farming, which include cultivation and herding, was occupational norm of this period. Agricultural activities in this phase were not labor intensive. The sites from where rice remains are found in excavations are located on the elevated areas of the Doab. This suggests that wet rice cultivation, which is labor intensive, was not practiced as yet. Mixed farming led to the rise of sedentary settlements. The PGW deposits are generally 2 to 3 deep and meter deep and indicate that the people were living in the same spot for a long time. At Bhagwanpura and Jakhera, the excavations show that the earlier phase of circular huts made of wattle and doab or wood were replaced in this period by more substantial houses with earth walls. Thus, durable materials were being used for house construction owing to adoption of sedentary lifestyle. Yes, you can see the oxes which they were using for plugging their land, for plugging their farmlands. Ox, there were so many oxen they were using at that time. Now, how they changed in the functions of rituals. In the early Vedic society, rituals were performed to bring about the welfare of the entire tribe. Gods were worshipped for ensuring victory over other tribes, granting cattle and sons. Yes, they worshipped their gods to find fine sons, to find cattle. It was also an occasion for the chief to distribute wealth. In the later Vedic period society, the function of rituals underwent as a subtle change. The rituals became much more complicated, which could continue for years. Thus, only the rich could perform them. That's why. The spirit of collectively was reduced. Sacrifices were performed to ensure control over rest of the tribes. Gifts were no longer given to entire tribe. Rather, the chief gave gifts to Brahmins who performed sacrifices for him. The rituals were so complicated that it needed expert Brahmins to perform them. Since it was believed that a wrong indication could bring disaster to perform. Yes. The performer of the sacrifices was supposed to grant superhuman status to the chief, meaning that they were superior to the rest of the tribe. For this service, the chief passed on a large part of his wealth to the Brahmin priest. That's why the rituals became a mechanism for ensuring the material and spiritual superiority of chiefs and Brahmins. Next is emerging importance of land. Yes, land was very important for the farmers. If land will not be important for the farmer, then how will they subsistence? The land was cultivated through family labor and the help of domestic servants and slaves. Yes. In this period, initially the land was owned by the clan, means wish. When clan ownership gradually changed to family ownership, the Grahapati became a man of wealth. Grahapati means householder, the head of the family, who hold the all responsibility of the house. The Vaishyas, the those who originally belonged to the Vaishyas. They were the producing class in the society and they became the source of wealth and their subsistence for the Kshatriyas and Brahmanas who did not actively participate in food production. The Vaishyas had to give presentations to the Kshatriyas in lieu of the latter protecting their lands. And dana and dakshina to the priest for their moral upliftment. The Vaishya characterizing the whole householding economy became the mainstay of the economy. Yes, presentations and prestations and dana to the non-producing classes helped in the distribution of subsistence of goods. As Brahmins were not going to to produce something, they were not a very big part in the economy. If we can say in economy, Vaishyas had a big role behind the economical system. There are no references to sale of land. Vishwakarma, Bhavana, ruler who rebuked by Prithvi when he tried to make a grant of land. This actual reference suggests communal ownership of land over which the Vish had major participatory rights. Political system and social system. The transition from predominantly pastoral to a mixed farming economy had a great impact on the character of later Vedic society and polity. The main trends of changes were: number one, tribal identity of the early Vedic society gradually gave way to territorial identity, and consequently the nature of chiefship changed. Number two, the social structure, which was based on relations within a clan and was largely egalitarian in early Vedic period, became much more complex at that time. This type of society was marked in inequality. Even the same clan was divided into groups, some of which could have high status in society, while some had low status in society. You can see some important picture. Polity, political system. Jana was used in the sense of people or tribe in Rigvedic period. People or tribe connected to Jana. But now the concept of Janpada emerged. First of all, we have studied about Jana, means people. And what is Janpada? Janpada means the area where tribe settled. The word Rashtra was also used for the first time in later Vedic period. It was still not used in the sense of state with well-defined territories. The Kurus, who were formed from the union between two major Vedic tribes, the Bharatas and the Purus. Bharatas and Purus are mentioned in the text as occupying the area in the upper portion of Ganga Yamuna Doab. Similarly, the Panchalas are mentioned as people who occupied the middle portion of the Doab called the Panchala Desh. This indicates that tribal identities were merging with territorial identities. It is also stated that when the Kurus and Panchalas came together, their authority over the upper middle reaches of Ganga Yamuna Doab was complete. These changes in the relationship between Jana and area over which it wielded control helped towards the formation of Mahajanpadas and Janpadas by 6th century BC circa. Tribal chief and tribal warriors. When tribal groups came to be associated and identified with particular territories, it also brought about a change in the status and functions of tribal chiefs. The Rajan was no longer involved only in cattle raids but emerged as the protector of territory where this tribesman settled. The Rajanya, which already was a superior lineage during the Rigvedic period, now became the Kshatriya, those who held power over domains, which is the literal meaning of the word Kshatriya. The Kshatriya class based their power on their role as the protector of tribe and land over which their tribes settled. The Vish had to pay prestations to the Kshatriya in lieu of the latter's protection, and the status of Vish was progressively subordinated to the Kshatriya lineage. Bali and Bhaga no longer meant prestations given at will, Bali and Bhaga, but gradually assumed the form of regular tributes of taxes, Bali and Bhaga. Tribal assemblies. The change in the status of Kshatriya is also reflected in the changing nature of tribal assemblies. The Sabha became more important than Samiti during this period. References to Rajas in the assembly suggest that they helped the king in his duties, means assembly. The off eyes of Raja chief was not based sole on birth, but the choice of Raja was restricted to Kshatriyas. Raja's legitimacy. You can see now Raja's legitimacy. In the absence of firmly established principle of heredity and primogeniture, consequently, rituals became very important for the ruler in order to assert this authority. Here, ceremonial sacrifices like Rajasuya Yajna, Ashwamedha Yajna, Vajpaya Yajna were performed on lavish scale, a big scale. In the Rigvedic period, the Ashwamedha Yajna was a small affair. But in this period, this was performed to subjugate other areas and legitimize the ruler's hold over alien lands. The other yajnas include prayer for rulers, health. All three were in essence legitimized methods employed by the Raja to proclaim his superiority and power. For instance, the sacrificer was proclaimed as a Raja in course of the Rajasuya. These sacrifices were found to be of relevance in the later period also when now kingdoms and monarchs emerged. They used sacrifices to give regions legitimacy to their power. Next is tribal conflict. At that time, hunter-gatherer societies were prevalent over how the conflicts they were having at that time, how they solved that conflicts at that time. Nature of intra-tribal conflicts and conflicts within tribes also changed. The fights were no longer mere skirmishes over cattle. Now, the acquisition of land was an important element in these disputes. The necessity of increasing territory can be connected with the growth of population within tribes. Iron weapons and light wheeled chariots driven by horses raised the efficiency of fighters. The Mahabharata depicts an intra-clan warfare between Kauravas and Panchalas of the Kuru clan. The scene of Mahabharata. What was the role of priest at that time? With the rising importance of Rajanya Kshatriya, the Brahmins too became important since they legitimized the office of the ruler through consecratory rituals. The redistribution of wealth through clan and dakshina, dan and dakshina, on such occasions were primarily from the Kshatriya Yajmana to Brahmin priest. The elaborate consecratory rituals suggest that they initially the power of the Raja was not so secure and hence he had to provide proof of his ability to rule. The status of officiating priest became at par with the gods in the later Vedic period. It was felt that the gods had to be propitiated with yajna and officiating Brahman had to be satisfied with dana. The channel of redistribution was between these two higher status groups. Political supremacy was slowly becoming the domain of Kshatriyas. You can see the scene of a yajna at that time. Brahman is also there. After yajna, he will get a lot of dana and dakshina there. Yes. What was the situation of society at that time? Society. We have already read about the status of wish and ascendancy of Kshatriyas and Brahmins. We have also seen some scene of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. We have also seen some Varna system, like, and they were characterized by the society. They were characterized by the Brahmin society. The society was thus composed of unequal groups. They were not equal at that time. The following hymn describes the origin of four Varnas: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, from the body of universal creator Prajapati. This hymn of the primeval men comes from the later portion of the Rigveda. It says, when they divide the man, into how many parts did they divide him? What was his mouth? What were his arms? What were his thighs? And what were his feet called? The Brahman was his mouth, his arms made the Kshatriya, his thighs became the Vaishya, and his feet the Shudra was born. Remember, the symbolism which is projected in this hymn is that Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are limbs of the society. These limbs did not have equal status. The Brahman was compared to the head of, whereas Shudra was compared to the feet. In social life, the Brahmins were considered the highest varna because it was believed that the society could communicate with the gods with the help of Brahmins only. The Shudras, on the other hand, perform menial tasks and include slaves captured in wars. Concept of Varna. The system of Varna had the following features, just like status by birth. Because Brahman usually says at that time that the role of a man behind the birth, behind his or her birth. Status by birth. Hierarchical ordering of varnas. Rules of endogamy. Ritual purity. Varna system is further tied with the concept of dharma, universal law. Varna dharma, Vama dharma, was an attempt to establish a social law for systematic functioning of the society. The Vama dharma system was not properly developed in the later Vedic society. The division of social groups was based on occupation alone, and society was also flexible, where one's occupation did not depend on birth. Yes, we can see. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, thinkers, leaders, profit-minded, and workers. The other name of these varnas: Brahman, thinkers; Kshatriya, leaders; Vaishya, profit-minded; Shudra, workers. Even in later Vedic times, post-Vedic, the Varna Dharma described the ritual status of each group. The Varna system did not prevent the non-Kshatriyas from naming Kshatriya status and becoming rulers, nor the Brahmins for naming a political suzerainty. Thus, the theoretical model of Varna system could never be rigid in force in the post-Vedic period. It is likely that during the later Vedic period, with the shift in the geographical focus, the Vedic people encountered many non-Vedic tribes, and considerable interaction must have helped in the formation of a composite society. At least the Atharvaveda depict a host of non-Vedic religious practices, which were sanctioned by the priests. However, tribal endogamy through strict marriage rule was the aim in order to maintain the purity of the tribe. The growing importance of Kshatriyas and Brahmins in the society made it imperative to maintain their exclusive superior status as compared to the East. During the later Vedic period, however, the concept of Varna was sedimentary in nature. The notion of the untouchability, for instance, is absent. Next is Gotra. The institution of Gotra appeared during this period, later Vedic. This against tribal endogamy. The people practiced Gotra endogamy, means marrying outside the unit, exogamy. Gotra signified descent from common ancestor and marriage could not take place between couples belonging to the same Gotra. Yes, in one Gotra they cannot marry with each other. The Gotra should be changed from husband side and from wife side. 8 list of gurus. Next is family. Family was connected with patriarchal system. The patriarchal family was well established and Grihapati acquired a special status. Household economy was gaining predominance. The position of householder to acquire economic importance. The rights on land was based on usage and communal ownership of land prevailed. The Grihapatis were wealthy. Their ritual role was that of Yajamana. Their wealth did not come from gift but was produced by their own efforts through yajnas which they were bound to perform to gain merit, and part of their wealth got cancelled to the Brahmins. Despite the presence of some women philosophers and the references to a few queens participating in coronation rituals, the women were considered subordinate to men and were not involved in any major decision making, subordinate to men only. 3 stages of life. The 3 ashramas of life were prescribed, represented by Brahmins, Brahmanacharya, studentship. Grihasth, householder. Vanprasth, retirement, householding life by living of forest. It seems that fourth, sannyasa. Sannyasa means complete retirement from active participation in the war. These stages was not known till the time the Upanishads are written. The sannyasis in the later Vedic period were individuals who protested either passive or actively against the Vedic social structure. What about the religion? The text of this period indicate 2 different religious traditions. First is Vedic, documented in Samaveda, Yajurveda and Brahmins. Non-Vedic, or perhaps the fourth tradition extensively documented in the Atharva Veda. Now you can see the Vedic gods and Vedic goddesses. First is Indra god, second is Agni god, and third is Surya god. The fact that Atharvan religious tradition was considered to be a part of Vedic discourse suggests assimilation of different cultures, beliefs into the Vedic religious system. The Yajurveda and Brahman document the sacrificial religion of the period. Sacrifices became very important during this period and they assumed both a public and private character. The public sacrifices, the Rajasuya, the Vajpaya, the Ashwamedha, was conducted on a massive scale wherein the whole community participated. Some of the rituals performed in these sacrifices show elements in a fertility cult. For instance, the Ashwamedha Yajna required the chief queen live next to sacrificial horse, where the queen represented the earth. This ritual was thought to ensure the prosperity for the king. A number of agricultural rituals were performed in the Rajsuya and Vajpaya. The periodical Raj went in. The, pre, the periodical rejuvenation of earth and its fertility are some of the themes which were included in the ceremonial yajnas. Priestcraft. Later Vedic texts reveal the elaboration of rituals, which were complicated and needed professional men trained in the art of performing them. With ease were formulated, and Vedic sacrifices no longer meant simple offering of food, oblations into the fire. The type of offerings, type of sacrifices, etc., differed according to the needs of the patron. As you can see, the priestship, the priestcraft, what the priest could do at that time. A class of priests became specialists in the performances of yajnas. There were even different set of priests for performing different stages of the sacrificial religious rituals. Indian god. The two predominant early Vedic gods, Indra and Agni, lost their importance. Prajapati, the creator, became important. The phenomena also represent the importance of sedentism now, since creation myths are important in agrarian groups. Rudra, a minor deity in Rig Veda, became important now, and Vishnu was conceived as the creator and protector of universe. Universe. Next is Pushan, who protected cattle in the former period. Now become the god of Shudras. Pushan. The changing status of deities is an indication of change in the character of the rituals. The tribes. From pastoral groups to sedentary agriculture groups, the early Vedic god who represented natural phenomena slowly discarded, and the personification of natural elements or divine being became very complex. It was no longer easy to find the natural element which represented a particular god from the hymns of the later period. You can see the picture of later Vedic period. Folk tradition. What is there in folk tradition? Like the cure of diseases, the prayers for health, the charms of the prosperity of home and children, cattle and fields, hence to produce harmony. Charms. Charms connected with love and marriage. Atharvaveda thus documents the kind of superstitions and beliefs. Superstition, there were so many superstitions, just like tabij, which they tie on their wrist or something else. They use that tabij for the magical formula. Priests officiated in this religion. Gods of Vedic tradition were invoked, but the reason for which they were invoked were trivial and individual. Many good lanes and spirits such as Pishachas, Rakshasas, and so on were invoked either to bring good fortune or to cause havoc and destruction to one's friends and foes respectively. The invocations and chanting related to domestic and household and were close to the daily cycle of extensive of the common man. For 253 example, Indra was asked to kill the house robber, the worm in the body, and wolf devil. The Ashwins were entrusted with the protection of agriculture, the killing of rats. Savitri was summoned to fix a place where a new home could be built. Pushan was involved to bring harmony and save delivery of babies, while Surya was involved to remove demons. Toward the end of this period, a strong reaction against priestly domination and against complexities involved in the yajnas resulted in the formulation of philosophical doctrine, which is enunciated in the Upanishads. These texts emphasized the knowledge of the Atma, emphasize the knowledge of the soul as against the ritualistic practices and wasteful expenditure which accompanies sacrifices. Thus, the materialistic aspect of religion was discarded and it was raised to the realm of philosophy. The Upanishads emphasized the changelessness and destructibility of soul, which in the way seemed to emphasize the need for the stability and integration in the period when the Janpadas and Mahajanpadas, republics and monarchies were emerging. Thus, we find that a great change in religious belief and practices had taken place between early and later Vedic period. This change was partially related to shift from pastoralism to agriculture. The religious changes of this period parallel and reflect the socio-political and economic changes that had taken place from the early to the later Vedic phase. Next, how much we have studied in this chapter. In this chapter, we have studied a lot of changes we have faced in excavation. The archaeologists have faced in excavation a lot of changes. Like they were not in Vedic period. They were after attending, after finishing some years, after passing some years. Now they were using some changes according to uh, Vedic period. They have some changes. Vedic period according. Now, the summary, what we have studied in this chapter. The Vedic society was changing from pastoral nomadic lifestyle to a settled agriculture society. But iron was yet to play an important role in agriculture. That, in the process, well defined political units were established. Laws were codified, distinct social stratification emerged. Vedic and folk religious tradition of this period. Vedic and folk religious tradition of this period were increasingly coming together while maintaining their identity. Then, in this process of change, some minor gods of early Vedic period, example Rudra became more important, while the earlier important gods like Indra became oh, less people. Indra. What both the literary and archaeological sources of this period have to be interpreted together to get an overall picture of the period. Yes, we have studied a lot of things. We have studied social system, we have studied economical system, we have studied a religious system and social, religious, economical and political system too. If we start to read about some important chapter, if we start to write about some important chapter, then we should see about these four systems of that time particular time. Otherwise, it will not be a very complete answer in your question paper, and you will not get satisfied marks in this question. The question will be coming like, what was the social, economical, political, and religious life of later Vedic period? Or the question can come the difference. What were the differences between these two periods, Vedic period and later Vedic period? If you got understand about the difference between these two time periods, then you will come to know about that how to write the answer. आपको पता चल जाए how to write the answer in this. Tradition, there were so many traditions they were using at that time. Tradition like it was the tradition at that time that patriarchal social system at that time prevalent. in the families. Patriarchal means the head of the family was the father at that time. If they will take any important decision at that time, they will ask to their father. And the father's order will be the last order for their family. They will have to obey that father's order. And in craft work, they were having pots, PGW. Craft work, they were having PGW, and painted graveware pots were the important archaeological sources to know about later Vedic period. Yes. And what was the role of Brahmin? Because they were having a lot of religious practices at that time. They were following a lot of religious practices at that time, just like Yajnas, Yajna, Rajasuya Yajna, Ashwamedha Yajna, and Vajpayee Yajna. At the time of Mahabharata, you have listened about the Yajna, Rajasuya Yajna. They have played at that time when the Kauravas and Pandavas came and they collect at that place to play a chaucer game, to play gambling at that time. And they lost, the Kauravas had lost each and everything in that gambling games. And it was the big loss for them. Yes, they were the sacrifices they were using at that time. In Ashwamedha Yajna, that in this name you also can see the name of the horse that is given in this name. The horse was left at that time, and wherever the horse went, wherever the horse gone at that time, the all places was went by that particular king of that horse. You have listened about Ashwamedha Yajna also. They were using gods Indra, Agni, and Rudra. Rudra was the deity in Rig Veda, and in later Vedic period, they used to believe Vedic gods like Agni, Indra, the importance of these gods. Vedic gods, Agni god, Surya god, Indra god. Gotras. I told you about Gotras, Vashishta Gotra. Yes, you can see the third last name of Vashishta Gotra. Gautama Gotra, Kashvapa. And this name is first name is Anchurasa. These were the name of Gotras. You know about in society it is prevalent that the marriage system within one gotra it cannot be prevalent at present and in the past time also not prevalent. You will have to change your gotra if you are going to marry in another gotra. You will have to change. A girl should have to change her father gotra, and she should adopt the gotra of her husband gotra after marriage. This is prevalent at that time. And some marriages we have told about endogamy, exogamy, polyandry, polygamy. These were the marriages because we have studied about 8 form of marriages. But now in this openly that 4 type of marriages were prevalent. Important marriages are 4: endogamy, exogamy, polyandry, and polygamy. Draupadi marriage was polyandry, and Raja Dashrath marriage was polygamy. Man having several wives and wife having several husbands. These were the importance at that time.